to create an environment that's conducive for businesses to locate here and retain our people here. If you follow me, I want you to also let me stop for a moment and say our ultimate outcome is job creation. So how do we measure our success? Is job creation, outcomes. The outputs we do is the SIP camera program, the facade improvement program, and so forth. By placing those cameras on those buildings, provides a safer environment for people to come there. If they feel safe coming there, they'll shop in those businesses. Those businesses will stay there because they'll be prosperous. And those businesses, because they're staying there and being prosperous, will employ people right there. And matter of fact, I'm a minority just like yourself. Most times, minority firms employ other minorities.
Yep.
And isn't that important for our community?
Very important.
It's important for mine.
Yep.
So it's important for yours, I would believe, as well. All right, so we talked about the neighborhood improvement area, neighborhood economic development. That's the grants area. I didn't say that we have grants, so I named two of them. We also work with community development corporations. So these are neighborhood-based community development corporations that are doing work in specific neighborhoods. If you're familiar with Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation, that's one of them. Where we will work with them to give them money to hire people to do work in the communities. So commercial corridor manager, somebody to go up and down a commercial corridor to work with the businesses, to make sure that they're doing the right things, that they give them some assistance, that they know all of this stuff that I'm talking about here, that they get connected into all of the work that we're doing. We are trying to do that in the Cambodian Association and Cambodian neighborhood at 7th Street. That's the new one we're trying to work on right now. We would love to be able to identify specific geography that you all are located in. It's got to be in the city of Philadelphia where we'd be able to provide something like that. But we provide support to those community development corporations, and we do that through grants to them. We hold them accountable, and that's also in corridor management. That's also in real estate. So if you go on our website, we also have a Facebook page. You can go on our Facebook page and you can go on our website to see the grants that we offer to CDCs and businesses for real estate development. So as an example, and last thing I'll say about that is that let's say a business wants to expand. It owns one property right here. Next door to it is a vacant lot. And let's just say for conversation purposes, next door to that is a vacant building. And you own this building and you would love to be able to get this vacant lot and that building to expand your business. You could come to us, ask for resources called real estate development loans and or grants, and we will help facilitate your acquisition of that, not only from a capital perspective, equity, grants, we will facilitate you loans, as well as walk you through our Office of Business Services, the acquisition process of that property, whether it's private or public, and it's easier, believe it or not, if it's public. Because then we control it, and we can then go to the public entity that has it. We have this one front door policy now where we can go to one place and acquire properties. We can go there, say, 222 West Gerard Avenue is vacant property owned by the city, owned by the Redevelopment Authority. This business, Indonesian business over here would like to acquire it, and we can make the connection to make that happen. We can facilitate that. One more example about that. Let's say there was a street in between that building, like a little street. We'll work to get that street striked off the map so that you can pave across it and have the whole thing. So that we can make that happen as well. So that's real estate development services. We also have access to loans. Nick talked about the SBA, so that's one of our partners. We also have the small business, that is the Small Business Administration. We also have the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation. They are secondary lenders. So what that means is that they work with your bank, and they work with your bank to provide capital loans at a rate that's much, much lower than what the bank is providing, so that when you combine the two together, you will have the effective interest rate that's much, much lower. So if you could go to the bank and get a $500,000 loan, and that costs you 10%, you could go to the bank and get a $250,000 loan at 10%, and another $250,000 loan with the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation at, let's say, 3%, and then combined, you come out to 7% effective rate, which you would be less at if you're going with just a traditional financing. That's Philadelphia Industrial Development. Again, all of that can be found in our work. Somebody has a question, so I'm going to stop.
Oh, can I ask you?
Yeah, absolutely.
About the CDC grants and loans, are they through your institution or through the community itself? Because Indonesian community, we don't have that yet.
Exactly. So that unfortunately is where the challenge is with this particular community. However, just because you don't have one of those CDCs in your community does not mean that you can't go identify one of those CDCs to help you facilitate, almost be that fiscal agent for you, so that you can then facilitate that into your community. But the idea is that if you are focused in a geography, it makes it a lot easier for you to create a community development corporation. Then that's the type of organization we can find. So it's difficult when one, so the power of organizing, so that's another thing that Sam does. He organizes businesses. It's better to speak with a voice of many than the voice of one.
Does it have to be a nonprofit?
It typically has to be nonprofits. Most of, I would say 90% of on our grant side, 90% are to nonprofits. There are those real estate loans that we will consider to for-profit organizations that are working in certain communities, our communities, typically lower income communities, where the project itself is going to help revitalize the neighborhood. That's when we might do a for-profit loan, a for-profit grant. All of our loans can be nonprofit, for-profit, doesn't matter. Okay. Our loans are our loans, and we give those out.
One more question. How about the newly arrived immigrants like Bhutanese, Burmese, and also Indonesian communities? We don't have that institution yet. Can we go through another institution like Cambodian or Vietnamese who are already here earlier than us?
Yeah, we would. The answer is yes. The trick to that is finding that good organization that you can connect with.
Yes.
So there are others. You mentioned the Cambodian Association. That is one. You could go there. You could talk to Nick about what he might be able to do as the Asian Business Chamber. You might be able to go to, in this neighborhood, Sam? CMAC. CMAC is here.
DPSOS, the Vietnam is one.
The Vietnam Association is one. If you have a neighborhood action center down here, I don't know if there's one NAC down here, probably don't have one. But CMAC.
There is another one called Nationality Service Center.
Oh, NSC. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Now, so their main mission may not be economic development. So what you would have to do is convince them to go in the economic development manner, and maybe, Nick and I were talking about this earlier, is that they may be able to provide the fiscal relationship for you, where you would be able to kind of tap into their 501c3 to do economic development programs. And if you're familiar with the way nonprofits work and everything, restricted funding, it just be restricted to your activities. And you pay a little fee to them for management experience or fiscal relationship or so forth. You could do things like that. To allow you to get your footing, then that will maybe get you kind of get a track record. Then you could go out on your own a little bit, and we would help you all the way. Honestly, that's what we're doing with the Asian Chamber right now. It was essentially non-existent. We got a good person to run it, a couple other folks to get in there. We gave them a little bit of money, the expectation that it get rolling and rolling and rolling, get more successful. The idea is that we get more money out of it. Because we do fund other chambers to a greater extent than what we do the Asian Chamber. And the reason behind that is that they have a much more fiscal standing, much more stability, they have a much larger population for which they're working with. If you get all those types of things, we will increase our funding now. I guarantee it. So that's how you would do that. Yes, sir.
As far as the surveillance cameras, can you clarify whether that program is available to businesses that might not be in a business zone? Because a lot of times you see like a standalone business on a corner by themselves.
Yeah, it is geography limited. So our funding, let me step back and tell you, our funding comes predominantly from the federal government. So here's a little commercial. If you want to talk to your municipal friends, including my boss, and tell them to give the Commerce Department a little bit more money, that would be great, because we could use it, right? But most of our stuff comes from the federal government, comes through HUD, Housing, Urban and Development, comes through a process called Community Development Block Grant. And so we have restrictions. All that to say restrictions. It's typically income restrictions, geography restrictions. So depending on where it is, we dictate. We are trying to attach some other money, you know, that's what we do in government. We kind of go here, and go here. That will give us the flexibility to go into non-traditional, non-CDBG eligible areas, non-income designated areas. So it just depends. I would not, if you have a building, you think of a location, come and talk to us. Because we will just say, okay, do you know where the building is? You got a building in mind? Roughly? Okay,
No.
all right, not a
I see 'em
problem.
all.
Okay, because it all boils down to the physical location of that building. And you may not know or realize that that physical location is is eligible. Sam, you want to add anything on that one?
Talk to me later.
Yep, okay. That's a new program. So we're trying to, what we have to demonstrate, honestly, to your point, to your question rather, is we need to demonstrate that there's a need. So we got to spend the money that we have right now so that we can then say next year, okay, so we spent all this money on this, there's a need, give us more money. That's the trick we play in government. Can't let money sit on the table because they take it away from you. So you got to find the need. So we are trying our best to make every property eligible for that. And because also that's a favorite program of this guy, and he wants to see us do more and more of that, so we're trying to do more and more of that. Okay, I talked about the Office of Economic Opportunity, I talked about Neighborhood and Economic Development, I talked about Office of Business Services. We do some other things called labor standards, which is a process where if you have public projects, where you get public resources, you have to hire people paying the prevailing wage. We monitor that, we make sure that those prevailing wages are met. Most people believe that means union. That is not the case. Most times it is, but it's not the case. All you have to do is pay the prevailing wage. You don't necessarily have to hire a union guy.